This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Broken and Unreadable.
Welcome to Broken and Unreadable. We have John Matter, Tim Lesage, and Mick Gillitzer. We're doing a special Memorial Day episode that will lead us into our podcasts in the future. Today, we're really going to talk about everything, a lot of the nuances that we have with Memorial Day, whether it be celebrations, and even remembering some of the guys that we had lost when we were in combat that are closer to us in like the sphere of influence, and then maybe go on to a brief history of like taps and some of the things that we do to celebrate Memorial Day. Right. We're going to go ahead and start off with Tim. Like, how do you celebrate your Memorial Day?
Traditionally, having kids, there's a lot of teaching that goes on, a lot of, not just Memorial Day, but just in general, it feels like it's our duty and our job to pass down, the right way to do things and the right reason for things. And the right reason for things, and that thing being Memorial Day, is to honor the fallen that protect us. So there's got to be some sort of lesson or remembrance or moment that has to be taught. So for me, as a parent for a long period of time, it was something to do with my kids, taking them to an event, and you and I have a connection there with the Madison Marines, Gulf 224, 24th Marines in general. Going to that ceremony when I was out, active duty at Camp Pendleton, there was, in La Jolla, there was some sort of event I would go to. But then I would make sure that I would do something fun as well. And the concept is, everyone that I know that has fallen, I've seen party, have fun, highly professional and amazing at their job. However, they could go on libo like nobody's business, right? And they would want us to have fun. They would want us to see if we can double flip a burger. They would want us to be able to, do whatever we want to do, kayaking to, parasailing to doing whatever the heck we want to do. So I want to tie the respect to living our life free and enjoying the sacrifice that they gave. So I try and do something good, because I know if I jump into the bottle and I seclude myself, I will grow in any environment that I put myself in. And if that environment is hate and discontent, I will definitely grow in that as well. So honor, respect, and then try and do something with sunshine or something,
Let me jump in real quick.
Yeah.
I like when he said you'll grow in that environment. Talk a little bit about how that matures inside you, is if being happy and content grows inside you, or if being angry and being sad and being lonely, how does that grow inside you, especially when it comes to these specific days where you can tell yourself it's okay to be sad that day. And then it's 2 days prior. Is it okay to be sad then? Is it 3 days after? Is it still okay to be sad? And at what point do you have to say, okay, this is the amount of time that I grieve, and this is the process in which I go through by grieving, and if that process involved at one point, probably for all of us, 2 bottles of whiskey, does that take that anymore? Do you give yourself 1 day? Do you give yourself 2 weeks, or how does that go with you now?
Oh, it's definitely changed with some maturity. There's definitely been times where I didn't do it right. And honestly, it's funny you say that, because there's definitely been times where I look like a wet cat in a shower with a 6-pack on a shelf, but for me, it really was a matter of, is this my choice, or is it's always my choice, right? It's my body, my choice, right? However, is it something that I'm like, hey, Memorial Day's coming and I'm building that scenario, good or bad, or is it something that I'm just having a bad day and I don't know why? And that's what I don't like, is if all of a sudden inadvertently or subconsciously I'm negative or depressed or whatever the deal is. And then I look and I'm like, oh yeah, it's coming up on November 4th or April 4th, my 2 Purple Heart days, or it's coming up on Memorial Day, or, if all of a sudden when I don't see it coming, I don't like it. If I see it coming, I can I can put lateral limits on it. I would like, all right, it may take a day or a week, but at least I know I'm going to make sure it ends at some point, and I started it myself. So
Perfect.
how do you celebrate?
First of all, celebrate is the right word for me, and I go back and forth, and I do consider this a celebration because I remember all the good things about these specific people that I think about on Memorial Day. Now, I don't run around. I've said Happy Memorial Day many times and I mean it, and in the main reason I have that mindset is the gentleman that we're going to talk about today. One of my best friends, my best friend for a long time, Tom Saunders, Master Sergeant, Special Operations Command. Him and I lived together for about 13 years. He's my best friend. We went everywhere together. Every weekend we hung out together. We lived together. We had one car for a while, and we talked about everything. We talked about history. We talked about titties. We talked about fighting. We talked about, the Brewers. And one of my more memorable conversations is if and when we die in combat. This is what I want to remember. This is the step-by-step process you have to take afterwards. And one day we'll get into his what he wrote out for his funeral was kind of, I ran over the United States. It's kind of ridiculous. But
I'm sorry, how old were you when that whole, hey, this is how you're going to remember me? How old was he or you, like roughly?
I would say the first time we had that conversation, we were both in our mid 20s. So we were young. We were both 2.6 snipers.
Yeah.
So we were
imagine being like in your early mid 20s as a civilian,
right.
Hey, this is brother, sister, classmate. Hey, this is how you're going to remember me.
Right.
Right. Anyway, sorry.
That's a good thing. And I don't think he sat down and said, all right, John, sit down. This is it. That whatever conversation we were having kind of moved to, if and when we die in combat, this is how I want to remember. This is what you need to do in order to help me stay remembered, and never once did we talk about, hey, I want you to cry for 6 hours. I want you to lock yourself in your parents' basement with a bottle of whiskey. It was always, hey, make sure they remember how hard I put, how much work I put in toward my craft, and how much he loved, I don't think he was a flag waving patriot, but he was a very patriotic person. He was very proud of where he was. He was very proud of where he came from. He was very proud of what he was doing. And he was a massively impressive person. And I choose on Memorial Day to remember him and people like him that were massively impressive, that made a huge impact on me. So when I wake up every day, and I still do this, I said, okay, what am I doing? Am I embarrassing these guys that said, well, make sure you go forward and become an impressive person in our stead, and I still do it. And I fail often, but before I go to bed, in my prayers, and when I wake up in the morning, I say, I have a goofy thing I've been doing since I was 10 years old. I say, dominate, because that's how I like to that's a good way for me to wake up.
That's awesome. I'm just picturing you sitting in bed, just waking up and sitting up and be like, dominate.
I swear. I all the people watching.
Yeah.
And
John's a waiver, by the way.
And that's how I choose to start every day. In a way, that's my way of saying, hey, fellas, I'm going to put some work in for you today. Now,
nice.
Sometimes I say dominate and then go pour a bowl of cereal, sit on the couch and watch, but those guys are in the back of my mind at all time. And to go back to your very original question is, how do I celebrate? It's just that at one point in my life, I open a couple beers and tell cool stories. I make sure I'm around other people. I don't want to be sad. I allow myself to be sad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't care if your best friend dies, crossing the street, or dies in combat, or dies in like Tom did in a helicopter crash. It's sad, but it's going to sound crazy to anyone listening here that doesn't have, very, very strong military connections. But if you're going to die, that's a cool ass way to die. How many times you say you die with your boots on? And that's not just a saying, it's an actual thing, and we'll talk for hours and hours on this eventually, but I remember one time I went out and took out a loan, like a $3,000 loan. You know, I didn't do shit with it. I bought like beer and my team went out drinking because I was like, no way am I gonna have to pay this back. I'm like,
I'm
no
totally
way.
not going to make it after this
I'm
deployment.
like, man, I got these guys. I
Yeah.
was like laughing at the bank. I'm like, I got your ass, man.
Sort
They're
of like on Armageddon.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
Let's
doing
go with a blast.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll take the Mustang at 26% interest.
I took a $3,000 personal loan for like 40%. I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm not paying this shit back. And I got back from America. God, they got me.
Yeah.
I had to go pay it off. But so that was our mindsets. Now when I'm 40, and I'm 40, I laugh at that mindset. But that was a mindset.
It almost seems like a whole different human being at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll have to identify that at some point in time too.
How do you celebrate, Mick?
I think that you identified it earlier, like with the maturity level.
Mhm.
And I look at like back in my life when I was younger and I go to these parades and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing time. And you'd see the veterans walking by like the VFW and you'd be like, oh my God, you're
Mhm.
looking at them. And I didn't really understand the context or the gravity
Mhm.
because I didn't, proximity wise, I didn't have that loss.
Because when you were a kid, you're talking Vietnam, Korea
Right.
veterans walking by, people charging bunkers and throwing
Yeah.
Molotovs into,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I remember when I was real young, I actually had an opportunity to meet a World War I veteran. And the teacher was able to articulate at the time, like, hey, this is like, I knew a Civil War person.
Mhm.
For me, it was a World War I
Right,
veteran
right.
who was a Marine.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy got gassed.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that. But again, it was big for the
Jeez.
teacher, but I didn't get it.
And I'm interrupting, and now I saw you were asked to go to a school or work with sports teams, and I got to speak at a school as well. We're those vets. We're
Right.
those vets that go talk to little kids now.
Right.
But anyways,
Right.
go on. How do you celebrate?
No,
man?
it's so appropriate to
Yeah.
bring that up because I think that BJ Ganem, who we'll talk about probably in an episode at some point in time, he recognized that baptism by fire is actually a blessing. And I told him, I'm like, you know what? I think that Iraq actually saved my life.
Mhm.
If you think about it.
Now, when you say baptism by fire, are you saying the actual act of
Combat?
being inside of a gunfight or learning from a
Warrior.
massively stressful situation?
I would say both. And in the context, imagine the buildup of that. Like there's a lot of things that you preconceived notions, everything across the board that you go into that fight. And then there's actually like all these repercussions post
Mhm.
and maybe even for years. But let's not dilute the situation. Let's go back to a little bit like how we celebrate and stuff like that,
Right.
just to keep online. I think that we need to bring that up in a conversation
for
later
Agreed.
as even a show,
Mhm.
to be honest with you. Because
The mindset of
honestly, again, going back into the context of the show, all these parades were very distant to me.
Mhm.
My father was a Vietnam veteran. He was on the Mekong Delta and Vinh Long.
Mhm.
He never really talked about
Mhm.
Vietnam. That was real distant. Once I got into the Marine Corps and I enjoyed that camaraderie and esprit de corps, then things started to change. And I think my corpsman, Ruben Munoz, actually identified it where once you get those personalities, it's not some Marine. Now it's someone that I know.
Right.
Oh yeah.
It's someone that lives with me. We have shared adversity. And all of a sudden for me, that veteran that was walking by in the parade on the 4th of July, it changed. That is us.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you're in a unit, especially a smaller unit or whatever, it's like I know what that guy's fart smells like. I know what that guy walking backwards at midnight looks like. I mean, yeah, these are when you say brotherhood, sisterhood, camaraderie, they're not the friendships of even a football team and or like any of these other things, teammates, great teams that we're on in the public world or whatever. No, this is so much more intimate than that. So yeah.
I remember my first wife sent me her sisters were young in high school when I was in Iraq for the first time, and her sister sent me a blanket, very nice blanket, just like kind of a little like stuggly kind of fleece. And I remember I took it out of the package, I put it on my cot, and that became our blanket. I didn't give it to anybody. People just come and take it, and I'm like, fuck, everyone just, And I said, where else in the world would a blanket be up for grabs? That's not a thing that you make. Oh, I'll just take this, And every time I get back from work, I'd I look around for my blanket and find it in a different berthing area completely, or a different cot, and it's
somebody's writing your sister and somebody's
Right,
like writing home.
or how many times you get a letter, you put it on your bed, and
Yeah.
someone's like, hey, look, a letter. Hey, read it? Yeah. And it's
Smelling it.
Oh, that's the truth.
where
That is so the truth.
I've never been in another situation, and I'm very proud to say this, that intimacy was anywhere close to
Oh yeah.
the closest you have, especially in combat.
So to bring it back real
Yeah,
quick,
what's your day look like
So-
for
so-
Memorial Day?
well, hold on a second. I need to identify this. Sorry,
Are we going back
jumping
to
all over the place.
4 or 5 weeks ago?
No, like
Conversation?
in that bigger context. So now there's an intimacy level that is definitely closer. So when you talk about mourning and celebrating, I agree with you. I think that we should be out there celebrating, and everybody should be. Like,
Mhm.
this is, imagine the first world problems that we have.
Oh yeah.
I was just like pulling up and dropping my kids off this morning at school, and it's like people are waving and you're letting me go in. This is not traffic in any third world
Oh
country.
my God.
You're not in danger. Like,
yeah.
I can have cold water.
Yeah. Oh, just water, let alone cold water.
Like, when you're forward and you actually are with these people who lost their lives,
Mhm.
like everything, their meals, that was man packed in.
And then in the same vehicle that they got shot or blown up in, or sitting in the same seat that their dried blood is still on,
Right.
or yeah.
Bigger picture, now I understand that they put themselves above the welfare of themselves
Oh yeah.
for the betterment of the group.
Mhm.
And that was to go forward and do their mission. So now when I think about like everything post my deployments, that was what, close to 20 years ago. But imagine all the life events that they missed out on.
Right.
Like, I think about just having kids in itself. I never thought that I would be a father,
Mhm.
but that unconditional love,
Oh yeah.
they've never explored. They never got to live that.
I disagree. They did that for their team. It's different. It's different. But a lot of times fatherhood, motherhood is one-sided, right? Until they grow up and have kids of their own or something. Like you will do anything for your kids. Well, those teammates would do anything for you, and you would do anything for your teammates. It is the one relationship that ultimately and truly is like you would sacrifice, both parties would sacrifice equally. Like I think of my kids love me. They haven't climbed a mountain for me. They haven't had a gunfight with me, or anything like that. My girlfriend, stuff like that, same relationships. We give it our all. They give it our all. It's just a different all, but anyway, sorry.
Yeah. What I was talking about more is like the life events. Like they didn't have
they
the
missed
opportunity
out.
to grow old.
Oh yeah.
Like the older I get, I'm like, it's not a bad idea. I want
Yeah.
to die with my family around me. You know what I mean? So I think of that. But like the sacrifice in itself there's an ebb and flow on that day. Like I want to celebrate, but there's also like a grounding. Like they've never been able to have this life that I lived.
Yeah.
And when I see that bracelet I think Nick Vento had identified it a couple of years ago, and it's got some of the Fallen for Gulf Company 2nd Battalion 24th Marines on it, but it says earn this. And I know it became popular in Saving Private Ryan, but it's so poignant. Earn this life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Every day.
Yeah.
Not
this.
like
there's
a
people
boot camp.
that literally
Yeah.
they're not here anymore.
Yeah. It's not a boot camp where it's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
It's
There's a ripple
yeah.
effect of that is very poignant.
I know you've said in the past that for Memorial Day, it's like I'm going to say it wrong because it's your feelings, but it's like you not allow yourself, but you decide to either separate, segregate, or, whatever emotion of, sadness or whatever, like you focus on that, whether it's to purge it or make sure you feel it, because we do have the ability to numb out and not feel anything, but like you process that. And then do you do that all day, or is that your focus for the day? Good and bad, remembering them, or do you do something fun as well? Or do you do something, or is it most of the day you try and keep away, other than like the memorial service? Just to get into it, we have a memorial service in Madison, Wisconsin, for the Gulf 224, the 24th Marines, and and others.
Identify Memorial Day overall, yes.
Yeah, but it's intimate, meaning you have the public ones where everybody in the public comes. This is open to the public, but yet it's quiet, quaint, and out of the way. The governor has shown up, many a times and stuff like that. But I think he comes because the governor of past, not the recent one, but regardless, it's real, it's intimate, it's not a show, it's not for anything else, and it's at the drill center, the reserve center for that unit, infantry unit. So we do that, and I've seen that, and then you see the veterans, like you said, from almost 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that'll show up, beards and guts and just whatever we've all become. But that's their day. They come, and it's Memorial Day, not Veterans Day. So it's to remember those fallen, but we all served together, or we didn't serve together, but chewed on some same dirt. And we all come together. And getting to your thing, like celebrating Memorial Day. I know I know that they want us to have a great day. But I don't know how somebody else is feeling that day. Right. So I always say, I hope you have a peaceful Memorial Day. Sure. Meanwhile, I might be, wakeboarding or doing something crazy behind a boat later on, whatever it is. I hope cracking some beers and, whatever it is, if my gout doesn't flare up. But regardless, I don't know where the balance is of masking some sadness and wanting to live the life that they weren't afforded and that they would want me to have.
I think this will resonate with both you guys. Like in the morning, I like to wake up, have that cup of coffee, because again, it reminds me of like a simpler life.
Yeah, sitting on
that day specifically, and it's that time of year where in Wisconsin and the Midwest where you have a lot of green and there's life.
Oh yeah, growth, life.
Start there. I think about that because I have to imagine that for me personally, I think about Iraq a lot.
Oh yeah,
in my daily world.
I got a weird one for it. Do you landscape, garden, do vegetables, do anything like that?
A little bit. Yeah.
You?
Always. Yeah. I love flowers.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird? They're like, look at it. Like, yeah, I plant flowers. And I identified it early.
Got some very impressive knockout roses now.
Yeah. But it's like, we're so good at ending things, destroying things, and eliminating things. It feels good to grow something.
Well, there's tangible.
Oh yeah.
It's a tangible. You can see it happening in front of you. But going back to Memorial Day, there's an innocence that's lost in combat.
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
There's an innocence lost in combat. I always remember like the first time I came back from combat, all I wanted to do was walk around barefoot in grass.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, am I trying to go back to like an innocent time where ignorance was bliss? Like I didn't know about like the real food chain world.
Oh yeah. You unplugged. I always related to the Matrix. The movie did a great job. We're not sponsored. I didn't pay for that. Whatever. I'm sorry. But regardless, the unplugging of the fake world, which is the third world countries that we deal with, that's their real world, and we're in this facade or whatever. But you talked about it earlier, about how it changed you, birth through fire, all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, when you start to see the reality of the real world, your buddy's dying in your arms or next to you, or the vehicle behind you, or the patrol before yours, before you go out, and just all that stuff. And you have to function, and you still have to do your job. Cut and paste that into your life now. It's like, yeah, you still got to go out and patrol. And that patrol may be going to your kid's soccer game, football game. That may be getting groceries. There's times I look at my fridge. I'm like, whoa, I must not be caring about myself right now, because I don't have, I got Bloody Mary mix, some blue cheese olives, and some expired bread. I'm like, self-care. I got to
ramen noodles over here.
Yeah. But yeah,
we talk about often on this show, and for people who don't know, us three get along real well. We spend a lot of time together working, and we do talk about perspective, and we talk about the curses perspective. I don't like getting wrapped around, I have what I have for the first world and they have what they have for the third world. That's not my fault. That's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
I squirmed out of my mom. I had nothing to do with coming out of here in Wisconsin, but I'm here.
What do you say when you wake up?
Dominate.
What'd you say when you squirmed out?
Dominate. I said it wrong. So I do understand there's haves and have-nots in this world, but I don't like sitting around saying, well, they don't have that, the oldest thing, like eat your food. They don't have food in China when you're a little kid.
Oh yeah.
Well, too fucking bad. Work harder, get the food, and I don't find myself feeling bad for the people that I've seen in these other countries, because Memorial Day says people put their lives on the line to ensure our way of life, right? Especially World War I, World War II, the Korean guys, those people fought, and if they would have lost, we would have a different way of life. Not worse, not better. I have no idea. Would have been different. And I'm very happy with the way of life we have right now. So so one of the ways I choose to thank our fallen on Memorial Day is to realize we got it real good. And this was not given to us. We took this and we built this, and it's our job to make sure it stays maintained, but make sure it stays an impressive place.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and just in the last couple of years,
talking about America.
Yeah,
I'm talking about Wisconsin. I'm talking about our households. I'm talking about this.
Yeah. We could see how that could flip pretty easily, not getting down the rabbit hole, but it's like things can change anytime, and that's why I'm like, I try and teach on Memorial Day. They're like, hey, thanks for your service. I was like, yeah, awesome. But however, Memorial Day. And if you're a dick about it, you've just created not an enemy, but you created somebody who's not going to do something for other veterans. So you're like, oh, hey, I really appreciate that. Just so you know, today's the day that we honor those that didn't come home. And some people don't know folks that didn't come home. And it's a great opportunity to go look at your little village, town, city park, where they have the names usually on a stone somewhere in a veterans park, or just look at the history of your town. You'd see, kids that were in high school in 1968 or 45 or whatever it is that shipped off, and all of a sudden you find out little things like, oh man, the gymnasium's named after that person, or whatever. Back then there was a little different tie into the community, especially when World War II, you have about 10% of the country serving, Vietnam 7%, in our era less than 1% serves, and that's not like an ebb and flow. That's a pattern at this point. Right. And that sacrifice that these individuals gave for the country, sooner or later, just like the 26% interest on the Mustang, you can't pay that debt anymore, and it's our job to kind of remember the fallen, teach the society, like, hey, this is who's carrying the pack of freedom for us all, and so, yeah.
I think before we move on, I think it's also important to note there's also the loss and that ripple effect of like the Gold Star parents, and society's loss in general. Like we talk about first world problems here in the United States. We enjoy these rights because of those who literally sacrificed, these people that we know, going back to proximity.
And people take that for granted. Like Correct. They're like, oh, we, because of our military, and we thank them because we can live our lives accordingly, blah blah. They haven't felt what that's like to not have that military or not have that. So it becomes very natural to say that and not have the weight of it. We go to these other countries that do get overrun or do it. I mean, it could be like that. And the whole, I hate America. And then they go over there and bad things happen to them because, anyways.
So bringing it back to me, and I apologize.
No.
Part of that day is also thinking about like those Gold Star parents that I do know.
Yeah.
Like this is something that is changed their life profoundly. You've done a Keiko before.
Not voluntarily either. We all volunteered. We know what could happen.
Correct.
Parents didn't volunteer.
Right. So imagine the trajectory of their life post that news being identified. So politicians, let's I mean,
can you go into what a Keiko is real quick?
Casualties assistance calls officer. Identifying whether the son or daughter has been wounded, ill, or injured.
Like the movie Taking Chance type of thing.
Yep.
The old knock, the dreadful knock.
So unfortunately, and I think that maybe have you done that before in the past or no?
No, absolutely not.
No. Okay.
I would not have been good at that job, and I was very thankful that I didn't have that job.
Which is probably a whole nother show, because I know that you've done it in the past too. I remember walking up to the house thinking, my God, I want to be under mortar attack right now.
And that is else in the world.
Way more comfortable. And I'm just like, but it's also appropriate that the Marine Corps does that.
Oh yeah. The honor in it, but it's like, oh, you've been blown up in combat or you're home from combat, fill this duty over here. This is my break from combat, is to go let families know, their wives and parents know that their husbands know that their loved one is dead.
I think people will be very interested in this.
Yeah.
Let's talk just for 2 minutes about the process of, we've all seen the World War II movies. We've all heard the World War II accounts of all of a sudden a
Sedan.
militant
Yeah,
vehicle
yeah.
pulls up
The
and
Jeep.
the
Mhm.
chaplain and an officer gets out. They fix their hat. The mom's watching from outside the window saying, "Oh,
And
shit,
just
please go to the neighbors. Please go to the
Yeah,
neighbors.
yeah,
Please go to
yeah,
the neighbors."
yeah.
And they come to your door, and the closer they get, and they in a lot of movies do a good job on showing her,
Yeah.
her realizing what happened before it happens. And then
Mhm.
so realistic, or what does modern warfare require, or what is modern technology? You get a phone call or an email prior, and then you show up to see if there's any questions for them, or what was that process?
Yeah, I don't want to quote
Goosebumps.
the DOD by any
I
means,
get
but this is
your
my
experience,
perception.
your
Yeah.
experience.
There has been definitely a sequence where, like, even as close as Vietnam,
Mhm.
where you would get a telegram.
Right.
Can you imagine how horrific that is? I think when you're looking at Hollywood, they articulate it good in Saving Private Ryan,
Mhm.
with all those brothers being lost,
Right.
whether it be fictional or non-fictional.
Right.
Imagine you losing the rest of your life, or you're getting that trajectory off of that letter.
Mhm.
Like being a father now, I don't even want to go there emotionally thinking about that. That's how horrible it is. And we know people in our sphere of influence, unfortunately, that have fought that battle and continue today to fight that battle.
Right.
Nowadays, the Marine Corps does come to you're the next of kin, and it's based off the record of emergency data.
With a chaplain?
It all depends.
Yeah. So in the past, it's been also determined on the threat of the area. Like if you go into the city or wherever and you're worried, we've done I can't remember if you're out with me on that one or not, did a knock, a Keiko, and the next day the person inside that home killed somebody downstairs, and with a sword.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what in the hell? But in some places you make a judgment call, just like any tactics, and you're like, hey, you check in with the law enforcement, and a lot of time the law enforcement chaplain will come with you.
Right. Okay.
If it's a security issue. Otherwise, we had, Steve Huff, chaplain, Pastor Steve Huff, that would come as well, or something like that. But the process, real short version, sorry to hijack, is it is primary mission number one. You may think that the active duty staff there is to train the reservists or whatever. Yeah, that they're there. The primary job is to knock and announce for any casualties anywhere else. And then, of course, doing, color guards and Toys for Tots and all that stuff. Wait, you have a Keiko, somebody died. It doesn't matter what in the world that you're doing. Underneath Keiko's is funerals. So anybody that died when I die after service, so not combat related, those are the two primary jobs. So, but that knock and announce that comes in a lot of times with divorce being the norm these days, more so than in the old times, whatever the old times are. The one that we did is father lives in Wisconsin, mother lives in Texas, and you are coordinating, and this is all within an hour. Oh, this is immediate. This is at 1 a.m.
River City, wherever you're deployed.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So then the whole unit's at River City, which is zero comm, like no emails, no phone calls home, no nothing until us or whoever was at home doing the announcement gets to the family. And you're calling in this point, Dallas, Texas, with that staff, and like, okay, we're driving up, we're coming up, we're about to, we're parked outside. Oh, we're still half an hour out. And then you just sit outside and you're waiting, and then you time it, and you do the knock and announce together, because there's been horrible stories of the wife finding out before the husband, and the husband finding out before the wife. And, in San Diego, the people that got notified, the family got notified, came out and burned the government vehicle down to the ground, just came out.
Right.
I mean, they're out of their mind, rightfully so.
Let's definitely bring this up for another topic.
Yeah, sorry.
And please feel free, all the listeners.
And it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
Sorry. It's the knock and announce. You notify, you sit with them for hours that night. You leave. You have to come back the next day to go over insurance paperwork.
Right.
And make sure that everything, hey, this is what the individual had set forth on their insurance, to go over insurance paperwork the next day, and then go over, burial decisions. This is DD 214 for the funeral director. And then also the personal effects gets mailed in from overseas. And then you have to sit there with them and go over, all the stupid crap that we have overseas and their gear. And then it is a 6-month process, but anyway, sorry.
And that's definitely a show that we'll have to like that can encompass an entire show, because again, the ripple effects that Gold Star parents and how it's identified it's a tragic thing. You know, if you look at like our leadership of this country, not to get political or anything like that, but imagine how many of those people have either served or have kids serving. It's a whole nother dynamic of sacrifice.
Oh yeah.
So again, another show. Thanks for that insight.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that day, how I celebrate Memorial Day essentially, and then let's jump into some of the individuals that we served with, that we lost, because I'd like to honor those guys. And again, there's going to be subsequent shows that will honor others in our sphere of influence, because
we honor them every day.
Yeah. John, you want to go ahead and take that? One of your personal stories? Yeah.
So, like, you guys have a bunch of them. I've been thinking the last few weeks on which ones I want to talk about. I'm not going to include rank or units, just because I want to make that this is the military's story and not just my unit story. You know, we were fighting in Fallujah, and my team was living with infantry unit in a train station at the north end of Fallujah. So we're actually living pretty good. Train station was at one time a beautiful place, and the Marines took it over and turned it into Marine Corps.
Oh yeah.
But it was a comfortable and well defended place to set up from.
Would a civilian here want to check into that as like a hotel and live?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But at one point,
But for us, it's better than a hole in the ground.
Man,
Yeah.
that was high living. There was hot food there. Yeah. There was porta potties, and there was good standoff, and we could sit on the roof, and we could call loom over the city and stuff. It was a good start off point. So my team, my small team got back. I remember the night before at 10 or 11 after a specific hit, and we were kind of laying around. We didn't have a job for the next day or two, so we kind of went on a react type of, we put ourselves on a react, and
being proactive. You're like,
just being proactive,
twiddle it for a minute. And you're like, nope, let's get out.
So take your boots off and make sure they're closed, type thing. Jason Gagliano took a team out, and dude's a stud, and he's still active, and he's still doing pretty impressive things. He took a team out, and the city just lit up, and you could just hear, combined arms and well coordinated fire. It wasn't just sporadic. Guys were actually out
like
there.
An ambush type of thing.
It was a pre-planned ambush. Medevac after medevac after medevac. So we started getting our stuff on. Teams started leaving.
How big was the train station? How many people there? You said infantry company, 120
so company,
people.
120 people plus a small support. There's some Chalaho guys. There was my team.
Yeah, some logistic people.
So I would say under 150.
And then all of a sudden there's a tick, troops in combat, and then all of a sudden it's like it is ants running out of the anthill. Right.
Yeah, people were literally, if a Humvee was not occupied, it was downrange.
Oh yeah.
And people were figuring it out. The captain, the commanding officer for 2-6 at that time, I'm not going to say his name. He was an absolute stud. He was a good man. You could talk to him. He was knowledgeable. He played.
He was a human.
He played a role. Zigafus was there.
Oh, it's
so we'll talk about him for Sergeant Zigafus at the time.
Does he need intro music and exit music when you say the name?
Yeah, we all got
Actually
kind of power heads we talk about him.
Angel singing.
So the amount of,
I feel like I should be doing pull-ups. If you say Zigafus names,
right.
You want to talk to me? Yeah, do max pull-ups real quick, and then you can talk.
If you walk by a pull-up bar in front of that dude, he look at you like you're retarded. Like, what did I do? He's like 3 push pull-ups. Like, you got to do that, really?
Fully functional pull-up bar right there.
He's a cool guy. And another cool thing, just from that deployment, I met 4 guys that are right now active duty sergeant majors.
No,
so that
to see the growth that came out of our era is amazing.
And they were young at that time, young sergeants, picking up staff sergeant. But the amount of impressive gunfighters coming out of that area, in like Mick said before, baptism by fire.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So when these sergeant majors now, let's think about the sergeant majors that we had, maybe got into a few firefights, but at that time when they were young Marines,
they were birthed by garrison,
right.
put into
Real
the
field.
fire.
I'll just put
coming
it
on
on
the
the
drill
table.
field. Yeah.
No, yeah.
So these guys, when a young Lance Corporal comes in their office and say, well, this is this and this, and they have a completely different way of looking at things. And I promise you, it makes them better leaders and it makes them better sergeant majors, which
They wore the same boots,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back to my story. So people start units start spreading out. We start reacting to this to this firefight. Eventually my team gets out there probably within 15 minutes of the first medevac, so this is a pretty quick thing. My team's out there. We had no idea what the threat was. We had a good idea what we thought the fire was coming from. We knew that the way they got ambushed, there's a huge apartment building behind. We figured it makes sense that they're shooting from that apartment building. So when we got there, our initial intel dump said, the threats are coming from above us. So we're patrolling, trying to get into a better position to support the extract of these wounded and killed Marines. As we were moving up, one of our guys took a round to the head, and the way it happened, it was fuzzy, and I remember, but I do remember running behind a wall in trying to pie off where I thought that round came from. In the way my teammate was shot, he was laying in the prone with his heels toward me, and I was yelling, "Hey, get the fuck up! You're in a bad spot, dude. Get up!" And we're hammering anything that's we're laying down suppressive fire, and that's just fire's priority. So pull the trigger more, and the bad guys pull the trigger and see if and try to quiet him down that way. The amount of fire that we laid down was, afterwards we went into the building where the bad guys were, and I remember it was like a movie. It was dead quiet. There was a bird cage in the kitchen, and the fucking little Tweety bird was dead. Like we killed their little shitty ass Tweety bird. So and
everything got
everything. There was 10,000 bullet holes, and so I'm yelling at this guy, "Hey, get your ass up, fucking move, you need to get back." And I go to grab him, and me and another guy grabbed his feet. As we were pulling back, you could just tell, pulling a dead body.
Oh yeah, just
different
front end stops.
Right. And I remember thinking, not at that time, I don't remember what I thought. We were moving and shooting. We probably fought. I probably shot
the first conscious thought,
right.
though. Yeah,
I shot probably 300 rounds that day, and I probably shot, and you'll know the difference. I probably shot 200 well-aimed rounds. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So, fire's priority. I was dumping magazines.
Usually it's like, 110 well-aimed shots or something,
Sir. So that's how much fighting there was. Bad guys. They're coming from your neck of the woods in Ramadi. You'd kick them out of Ramadi.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah,
come fight in Fallujah. We kick them out of Fallujah. Come fight in Ramadi. Right. And these guys were impressive enough that they deserved.
Some respect. You're gonna
respect,
say,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they also deserved our best maneuvering and stuff. We wrapped that city up. When we got back, this is a story I actually tell in therapy, because this one bothered me for a long time. I didn't know these guys as good as I should have, because they weren't I was there as a guest. I knew them good enough that I see him in the show. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Hey, we brought your.
That's an attachment.
We brought your DVD player.
Still proximity.
Yeah. But so we were close. We're all, I was a Marine, so it made sense, and we were close because of that. And the team that originally took the ambush, they were back refitting, and they're getting ready to go back out. I came back to refit probably after an hour and a half, and I was just getting a few more bullets, a drink, and headed back out. And I seen this group kind of huddled up, praying together. And I foolishly went over to them and I said, "Hey, it's fucking time to fight. Bad guys need to be killed. We do that shit later, And that's maybe my most regrettable because I don't know if they seen John Matter doing it, or if they seen my rank doing it, or they seen my unit doing it, but I was representing all those things.
Yeah.
And I chose to chastise guys that just lost a good group. Like they lost 4 guys that day.
Yeah.
And although I think I was right in what I said, hey, there's time to mourn, there's time to kill, just the killing time. I don't like the way I went about it. It was too Sergeant Slaughter army bullshit. That's not the kind of person I am. And what I should have done is went and said, hey man, I'll be here praying with you. I'll be here crying with you in 2 hours. Let's go kill bad guys right now. You know, one of my biggest regrets. And unfortunately, every time Memorial Day comes around, that's one of the stories I remember about myself.
It slips in there.
Why would I do this to those guys? You know, and I'm too much of a coward to reach out to. I know who they were. 4 or 5 guys I know, and I could get the rest of their names to reach out and say I'm sorry, because they don't have to accept they could call me an asshole and hang up on me, and I'm afraid that would happen. You know, so I've talked to people. I've talked to Gateway often about this. He's like, I've never heard anything about it. You know, but so I guess this is my way of kind of cleansing and apologize for that. My mindset was correct. Kill bad guys. That's what you're supposed to be doing that day. And they should have been in that mindset, I think, but they didn't need me to try to put them in that mindset, you know. And to tell you the truth, 2 minutes after I said that, we're all in a vehicle. They're headed back out and killing bad guys, you know.
Regardless, this is a venue or a catalyst actually, where you can open up that dialogue later.
Right.
With these individuals, if you ever wanted to, in a therapeutic manner.
Right. So so this is I guess that's my Memorial Day story. And that's also my Memorial Day. What haunts me on Memorial Day is that specific conversation. You know, it's not as much the people who died, because it's a weird way of thinking. And people who listen to this, they don't understand the combat mindset if they're not in combat. You know, like I played enough football that I know football. I don't know what it feels like to be in the NFL because I've never been there. So I have to listen to other people and say, you know, but I do know what it feels like to be in a gunfight, because I've been there over and over and over. And so my Memorial Day story is my regret, how I verbalized we need to get back to work. You know, I'd like to apologize to those guys, but also say, you know, we killed a lot of bad guys that day, you know, and we lost some outstanding people that day, you know, including one of my guys that, you know.
Well, I would say, you know, yeah, I'm not your therapist, but you know, it's like we're all each other's therapist. But you know, like your fallen comrade, or like us, if we weren't here anymore, we would want the Marine to go forth and have a great Memorial Day, you know, that type of thing. In combat, I would also be like, you know, load up and fight everybody, you know, like, so your mindset is probably, if I passed away, I'm like, make them pay, you know, make them pay, you know, when in doubt, black them out, you know. And it's like, well, so and I get it.
And you're absolutely right. I wish I would have said, hey, let's go kill bad guys for your brothers,
yeah,
you know, but I did it.
Yeah.
You know, I meant it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and
you know,
I'm the world's worst sinner. However, very religious. So I usually say I'm very religious, and everybody categorizes that. But I'm very strict in my religion and fail every single moment of the day, type of thing. I would pray, you know, but I would also then I would get in the war zone to go out and slaughter bodies in the most, you know, professional, ethical, moral way. But however, seriously, but in order to do that, you have to slaughter a body. We talked recently to some folks, and I'm like, hey, however you word it, like, oh, we're going to, you know, observe and report and provide intel to the, you know, commander so they can, the bottom line is I'm paid to shoot people in the face, you know, and it's like that's the goal. And you have to get in a mindset. That mindset may be, I'm going to pray first and then put on war paint, or I'm going to put on war paint and then in the moment pray, you know.
Right.
So there's no right, there's no wrong, you know, whatever, you know, no matter what. We all know that the fallen would say, hey, I want you to flip a burger on the day, but in that moment, go ahead and waste everything in sight, you know. They would, you know, within the ROEs, you know.
Make sure you add that.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you note that, though. I mean, hindsight's 2020.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and I wouldn't be too rough on yourself. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like
that's you thinking. That's not
super critical about it. Like,
that's not
you're right.
Thinking.
In the hierarchy of needs, like, you're in the fight.
Right.
Remember that, like, at the end of the day. So you're used to hands-on.
Well, that was the first time, and one of the rare times that I had the ability to represent my unit, myself, to a different group in that very specific. Now,
in a non-physical manner, like,
no,
you know.
I briefed at my missions
200
times, and I talked, you know, and we came off some. That was Fallujah in 05. We were putting it to the bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, so I would come and debrief in front of these guys and say, hey, you know,
They saw what you do physically.
so this is who I am as far as the gunfighter. I had the ability to show them, you know, because my unit doesn't. There's nothing in my that we ever talk about saying, hey, be fucking harder than death. Never. That's not how it says.
Right.
So I had the opportunity to say, hey, look, I spent this last 4 months with you guys killing bad guys. Now that we're in a situation, I can give you a hug and show you that I'm not some mindless knuckle dragger,
Right.
you know. And I failed at that. And the reason I failed at
Not failing now.
right. And the reason I failed at it is because that really wasn't who I was. I changed the way I wanted to approach these guys because I thought it was the tactical tough guy thing. And that's just not the kind of person I am, you know. So, you know, selfishly, I want to go back and be like, hey, remember that time? Like disregard and then let's give each other hugs, you know.
Go back to perspective. Imagine what I identified earlier, like in the maturity level.
Yeah.
Sixth grader John Matter,
Right.
You're viewing this whole Memorial Day and the magnitude, the level of sacrifice, proximity, everything differently. Now it's almost like you're beating yourself up for not at the appropriate moment being able to identify it
The
with,
mature level,
like,
yeah.
hey, I have behind this, I'm a staff NCO or whatever rank you were, that's representing the organization, the Marine Corps, the warrior ethos, everything across the board. So I get that. But again, in that spectrum of maturity, imagine you now, you're able to think about that in hindsight.
It has made me a better person. That thought puts me back to reality often and saying, okay, that this is, you know, that's not who you are. And I don't even know if I'm not like it. Doesn't make me sick, but it is something that I'm not happy about myself.
It's a chapter in your brain.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir, it is.
And I'll say, we're talking about it. You're hearing about it for the first time right now. That was 17 years ago or whatever it is, you know.
Yes, it was.
And
Yes, it was.
if you think as you're listening to this 17 years ago, if you went to a seminar for your company, or you went to college, or you got certified in something, that was the moment in time where you learned something. Well, that was 17 years ago. You learned a lesson, you know, and that's for the last 17 years, you know, you've learned from that lesson and applied that lesson, and you're a better person for it. You know, you're a great person, better leader now, whatever. But nobody involved would want you to punish yourself for it.
I get that.
Especially, you know, I mean, and I'm talking to myself too on a couple things too, you know. I'm
I was
like,
just gonna say, you're preaching to the choir over here.
yeah,
You know,
and I'm for the crowd too. It's like, you know, we all have that moment and we punish ourselves. Some people, like, they do wrong and they could care less how it affects people, you know, screw you, you know, we're not talking to you, you know, we're talking about the people that will just continue to punish themselves for year after year. I'm like, hey, you learn the lesson, write it in your book, remember the lesson, grow from the lesson, don't stay in the lesson, you know.
And this is a complete story for a different podcast, but I think that's lazy pussy act that say, well, I've been in my mom's basement drinking beer for the last 17 years because I did something wrong. You know, it's not my fault. I'm a piece of shit. That I'm sad.
We're responsible for our lives.
Grow up and move forward. Don't forget about the shit you've done. But if you let it affect you for 17 years, you got some problems.
It's your life. You have to solve your problem. There is a million tools out there for you to solve your problem, but it's not it is their job sometimes to help you solve your problem, but it's not their job to solve your problem. It's your job to use them to solve your problem.
Let's bring it back into perspective. When you say that, you guys think about this. Those individuals that we know personally, they are not here today. If they had that opportunity, what do you think they would tell you? Would they tell you, hey, you should be in your mom's basement drinking beer and feeling sorry for yourself? Think about that.
I
right there. Tell that to every veteran that you know that is feeling these ways. And I'm not saying that it's going to erase any feelings by any means.
Survivor's guilt.
But let's think about that in context. If you had an opportunity to talk to any one of those guys, what would they say to you?
Well, I always say the one thing. I'm like, man, I would have. Some of us joke, but you know, that's the way we deal with things. Dark humor, veterans, whatever. But regardless, at some moment in time, you're like, why am I alive? Why wasn't it me? I would trade places with them. You know, at some point, you have a smidgen of a survivor's guilt, or you live 17 years with survivor's guilt, whatever it is. But no matter how much you want to trade places with them, they would never allow you. If that function happened, like they're like, well, you want to do a 1-for-1? They would never allow that to happen. You know, they're they are proud that they gave their life instead of you giving their life. It's a boasting moment for them. That's the way I look at it. They're up there laughing like, sucker, you know, I'm floating around here, you know, and singing, you know, hallelujahs and stuff. And yeah, I'm putting everybody as Christian. They're all in heaven for me. You know, but I'm just saying, you know, they would not trade with you no matter how much you would want to trade with them. So you're sitting there wishing that, you know, oh my God, woe was me, woe was them. And I wish, you know, that why is that them instead of me? Well, they're up there and they want you to live your best life and you're screwing it up, you know.
Take under consideration the context on our society like that. There's people out there that willingly go forward and they understand and accept that, hey, there might be loss. I might lose my life, but I believe in this so much. And there's a lot of, like, you go 2 or 3 families away from like military members, and there's people that don't even know anybody that's been in the military. Period.
No concept.
And you have this, again, I like the catchphrase, first world problems.
Oh yeah, entitlement and everything.
Yeah, I can't get internet. I'm starting to lose my mind. What's up with that? It's crazy, but we enjoy these simple pleasures and our lifestyle because of those, and it's a real thing. There's a direct lineage. Those who have sacrificed and lost in the past. Imagine the 660,000 people that we lost in the Civil War, North and South.
Medicine and nursing and all of that makes its huge advancements off of war. And that's war sucks, war's bad, but you got to have, you know, a baseball bat if you got some mean words. You know, like if you're going to do politics, you got to have some weight behind it to do politics. And so no matter how it is, no matter how much you don't want war, the world's going to have war because other countries, you know, are going to say F you, you know, and do their own thing. However, you know, it's, you know, anyways.
Yeah. So let's get back into
TBI.
like,
did you catch the TBI moment? I was like, what the hell was I talking about?
well, you looked at the horizon.
And in conclusion,
let's get back to like talking about.
Tim, tell us the story.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So I have 2 individuals that I talk about a lot. You know, Barrow and Hubbard, you know, short version is we were scout snipers together, bumping across the street. Point men already went across the street. You know, Adam Blair, Joe Grimaldi, name dropped them all. And, you know, bumping from alleyway to alleyway, across like a secondary shitty road, command detonation, going after Al Zakawi, number 3, you know, terrorist on the deck of cards, prior to Chris Kyle being in country. And so what his whole movie is based on. But who said that?
That was your inner monologue, by the way.
But no, I talk about them a lot. They're near and dear, you know, to me. And anyways, as we're standing here, if I was another 2 feet forward, is how they died. So they were standing my left and right, and we were bumping across the street, and somebody command detonated several to many, like 5 to 7 155 rounds set to blow up and take out a full armored convoy. We were on foot, killing them instantly. One passed away just from pure concussion blast. And I was wounded. Point men were wounded near side of the bump, was wounded, you know, small element. Anyways, horrible story. I'm not going to talk about that one. I talk about that one a lot. You know, I remember them every day. I'm with them every day. Some of the stuff that you regret, I also regret in regards to the Gold Star parents. You know, I was very close. You know, the Barrows and I are still close. The Hubbards and I were very close. And now we're not, and that makes me sad. You know, Peggy and Jeff are great human beings, and I need to track them down. But it is one of those gut wrenching, heart wrenching things, you know. And you know, with Peggy and stuff like that, she's a second mom, you know, type of thing, and she always will be. Sometimes we don't see eye to eye politics and weird stuff or whatever. It doesn't matter, you know. She's Gold Star mom, she's our mom, you know. Jeff and Peggy, you know, lost their son, you know, when I got wounded when their sons died. I am talking about the story, I guess, but just not how it happened. But Barrow and Hubbard, they grew up in Clovis, Fresno, California, grew up together, played sports together, competed with and against each other, football, all that stuff. High school, it's called the Buchanan Seven. Their school, they've lost at the time. I think they lost more people out of that high school than anyone in the country, any high school in the country, but from our war. But they joined the Marine Corps together, SOI together. They went to, whatever. They joined 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, Retreat Hell, together, and then they joined the sniper platoon together, and then, became, in the platoon. They passed in doc and everything else. And they deployed together, and then they died together. Just a painfully romantic story,
Right.
And that's not the end of the story, though, for the Hubbards. And it's bad for everybody. It was very traumatic. So, the Hubbards, then the two brothers, one was working a federal gig, law enforcement type thing. And another one, Nate, was in college, I believe. And the youngest brother, and they, I got wounded November 4th. I was home November 9th, bleeding out on my couch. No medical care, ridiculous softball size wound through my thigh, another hole through my calf. Back then it was Civil War. It was World War I. People just came home unless you were in a major burn unit, San Antonio, or, I was in Walter Reed, Germany, all that stuff. And all of a sudden I woke up on my bed, like from unconscious. It was just no tracking of people. Anyways, November 9th, I was home. On Veterans Day, I was up in Fresno at the funeral because I thought it was wrong. I don't know if that was my place or not. So we talked about the Keiko stuff, that the Keiko was just going to read this sentence that said, your son by name, whatever, was killed in an IED blast in Ramadi or Anbar province, Iraq at this date and time. Boom. That's it. That's all they know. That's all they would ever know. And I was like, nah, that's bullshit. I don't agree. And I, time release morphine, Percocet, I think Demerol or something, alternating at the time, packaging my own wounds. Like I said, a softball, according to the record, softball size hole through my thigh, just bleeding out, turning white as a ghost, just crazy. Got up to, Northern California and showed up at the funeral. There was a general that was doing the Keiko. So a 1-star general was the flag presenting officer. And myself and another sniper, Adam Blair, made it up there. The other one that was wounded, Grimaldi, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say his name. He's doing some work, but anyways, he was in bad shape. He needed a bone graft and all that stuff. So he was stuck in the hospital. So Adam and I made our way up there and went to the funeral. So we showed up at the cemetery unannounced, type of thing. And the parents saw us because they had come down to sniper school graduation, and we were there and stuff. And they just knew us or whatever. And they looked at us in horror, like, one, why, how are you home? Why are you home? Why are you here? And then it's like, I'm here to tell you how they died, if you want to hear that. And then we went to a private area and told them, and it was the one thing that I could do as a leader. However, and the brothers were there, right? They both stopped, dropped, and their lives, from their college and career, joined the Army together, went to boot camp together, went to AIT together, advanced infantry training together, joined a infantry unit together, became snipers together, and in Afghanistan on a mission, together, 2 different helicopters, a second brother died. And so that family has been through the ringer, as I get goosebumps, but so that family had to go through it all over again. And the remaining brother, wife was, and I may screw this up, 6 or 8 months pregnant, but like gonna pop, right? Pregnant. And they did the Saving Private Ryan on him. They're like, oh, thank you for service. You're out. Like, stop, dropping, you're out, and, yep. And he's like, that's not my choice. I don't want that, type of thing. And, and so all of a sudden this baby's born, no insurance. Now he's got bills. His brothers are, just a shit show, and now
try to identify, like, he was done with his service in the Army. The Army said, hey,
oh, the Army. So now he has
abandonment.
On that. I would assume, I would assume that the abandonment issue of that, I don't have my brothers anymore. I don't have my teammate brothers anymore, and I don't have, and I'm saying brothers because it was an all male unit, but I'm just saying he doesn't have his team anymore. He doesn't have his family. It's, it's just, his world's upside down. His wife just gave birth. He's got, so However, it came about through complaints and whatnot. The brother congressionally had changed that law, and I think it's called the Hubbard Law now, to where, so that you can't just kick them out or whatnot.
Hang on, John saw something shiny.
No, I dropped something shiny.
Yeah. So
Is there glare?
So that's the story I'm not going to tell. I didn't say how they passed away and all that other stuff about my team, but I've said that enough. But I was going to talk about Pat Rapicult, captain. I thought, after he passed away, it was major, but I'm not sure. Pat was an officer at the battalion level, and sorry to hog the mic here, but I think it's appropriate. I got into Ramadi 2004. Fall of 2004 or something like that, summers, fall. Unit before us took mass casualties. We almost deployed early to support them. Just, it was a rough ringer for them. And get into country. Prior to that deployment was the war, 2003. ABC Nightline News, no plug, no permission, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, they followed us through combat. They adopted our unit and they embedded into our unit and followed us through the invasion, and that's how America, through ABC News, would see what was going on in the war. Well, when we deployed right back again into Ramadi, they embedded with us again. They like, hey, let's do a part 2. Like, where are they now? Oh, they're getting ready to deploy to Ramadi. Did a little training, newscasts, and then off to deployment we go. Our company commander, within the first week or something like that, very quickly. So our sniper platoon was attached to weapons company. You can attach to weapons or H&S, blah, blah. Anyways, we were attached to a weapons company. The weapons company commander, not a platoon commander, not a lieutenant or whatever, he's a company commander, resigned his commission in country immediately within a week or two, setting foot on the ground. It's like, whoa, he just had like a kid or 2 kids or something like that. And definitely not justifying, but he's like, this is basically, for us, it was all worth it, right? This is why we're here. The passion's here. He's like, nope, this isn't for me. This is no, ouchie, that's hot,
Nerve.
Oh, just
nerve.
He just lost his nerve. Yeah, he just immediately folded. The battalion commander's like, not going to convince me. You're done. Yeah, out. And so I'm tying in this ABC thing. So ABC is like, they adopt the company commander and then follow that company. And that's what they did. They adopted weapons company 2-5, and they were going to follow them through Ramadi. And all of a sudden this company commander quits and they're like, oh, and then, so I think he was an operations officer at the battalion level. So above, the company commander.
Probably major.
Yeah. He died as a captain, but I thought he was selected as major and stuff. So they like, hey, do you want this up? And this dude, he was French, from Louisiana. Picture the accents. He was French, raised or whatever in Louisiana then, or moved to America. And he's like, I thought he was, got a citizenship. He was definitely French, and then got a citizenship, and then was raised in Louisiana. So the twang and wang is just like, wow, and so God bless you,
Thank you,
John. Yeah. Salute. So anyways, this, Marine comes in and, just a good company commander. We're the snipers. We're like, I don't care who writes the paycheck. It's like, are you going to let me do my job? And so, however, we had an amazing battalion commander, Randy Newman, Colonel Newman. And so he's like, all right, Pat, you're in charge of weapons company and snipers. We're like, all right. And so we kind of chit chat a little bit, and we're like, hey, we have some other, the unit prior to us did it this way, we're going to do it this way, blah, blah. And I won't get into that. ABC Nightline News, like, hey, we're going to bed with you. They do a couple, airings of like introducing Pat, introducing the company. They're out on patrol with him. He's at an intersection. They're popping corners. They're out there running and gunning type of thing. And it's the same Mike Saray. I'm going to drop your name. Mike Saray was a Vietnam Marine who then now worked as a contractor through ABC News, and that's why we allowed him to embed, because he was a Marine. He was in Vietnam. He was savvy. So anyways, long story short, within a very short amount of time, a couple weeks, within that first month, Pat was killed via a blast. IED had went off and killed the company commander. So now we have one company commander that resigns. We have next company commander that is killed, and And I remember, I was wounded shortly, soon at some point I was wounded and came home. And I just remember watching the news and just watching. And that's kind of today we had talked about, like, hey, tell the stories of these people, and then say that they passed away. Because when you hear, oh, somebody had passed away in combat or war, they're in society's minds, like, that's their job. They think that's what they signed up for, whatever, I just remember watching the news and watching just the heartbreak of, like, okay, you pulled in society with this, person, and then immediately they did like a taping or whatever. Like, it is unfortunate news that, we have to tell you that 2-5, the company, he was killed, and so, like, the star of their show also died. And I just remember then they named a street or whatever after him, like, quickly in San Clemente, Dana Point, I think it is. But anyways, it was just, it humanized us, right? We are trying to do a job out there. Society categorizes us like, hey, that's your job out there. But it's important, and for Memorial Day and why we tell these stories, like, we're people first. We're, picking up our kids at school, and we have jobs now, and before that, our job was military and whatnot. But when we're not deployed, we're also picking up our kids at school, or we're coaches at somebody's soccer game or whatever, and we're doing our thing. And when we're gone, that matters, that matters to our team, but it should matter to your society too. And that's why I encourage people to go look in their little town, village, or whatever, if you don't know somebody from your town or village died fighting for this country. It might be in the last 20 years of war that we've been in, or it might have been Vietnam. It might have been but somebody who grew up in that house or the house prior or somewhere else in your street or something, served this country and they passed away.
The sacrifice definitely transcends time. Yeah. One thing I want to bring up before we move on, and I'll tell my story, but I do think it's pertinent. If you are a veteran and you're listening, I think that you need to, if you have reservations about reaching out to Gold Star parents or anybody like that, I know for the longest time, and it's taken me almost 2 decades to do that with some of the guys that I lost. I think it's an important relationship in 2 aspects. One, you support that family. They should feel like, hey, you've just gotten a company of
you lost
Marines.
One and you gained 120 or something.
Yeah, you should rely on us. And I'm throwing that should word out there. Rely on us. Mm-hmm. Like, we want to do that for you. And I'm sure that
who the hell's outside mowing my lawn? Oh shit!
There should be definitely a dynamic there. Mm-hmm. That family dynamic. You've shared an adversity, post deployment. Mm-hmm. Come back and support those families. It is a family.
Yeah.
Going into that, I think for many, many years, I've always avoided that. Like, in the context of, hey, could that have been avoided somehow? Or did I screw up somehow?
I do wrong?
Yeah, like stuff. Did I not identify this? What it might even be in a training aspect. Like, did I not tell them that? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, try to forget those feelings and not dwell on that. Like, as you both know, you could be in the military for 20 years. Mm-hmm. All your training, conditioning, everything's going to go out the window in the first 15 seconds. And you're going to be in a place where you cannot control the scenario.
Yeah, it's caveman, it's
you just can't. Like, things are going to happen. You have to accept that. Otherwise you won't be successful.
I hate saying it, but what you said earlier, I hate the word, I hate it, but it's selfish. You're like, oh, I can't talk to the parent. I can't, like, you talked about courage earlier and stuff. And and I think about the stuff that I'm not doing that I should. I'm like, I'm lacking courage and I'm being selfish. It's not about me.
Every time I think about calling Tom's parents or the large group of other parents, the only reason I don't is selfish reasons. And when I do, I remember thinking, man, that was good to see.
Oh yeah,
man, that meant so much to them. Why did I do that once a week? Not once a week might be much, but if anyone's listening, make the call, send an email, send a message on Facebook. Stop at their house, give them a hug. It's worth it. It's uncomfortable for 2 seconds, and it's uncomfortable after 5 minutes. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, all right, well, thanks for the hug.
It's uncomfortable until it's not uncomfortable. Yeah.
Okay, I'm hanging up now. But you don't gotta sit and chat with them for 2 hours. I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't want anyone calling me for 2 hours. So make the call.
Yeah, I think so. Going into one of the guys that I remember. And unfortunately, there's so many that we could dwell for hours and
Yeah.
hours and hours. And there will be subsequent shows where we identify, in particular, people that we have lost, whatever, just as like a tribute for their life. I'll talk real briefly about Ryan Catafio, who's a local Marine out of Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. He was a machine gunner, and a week prior to his death, he actually saved my squad. At the time, I was a sergeant squad leader. We got into a combined arms ambush along this main supply route, MSR Tampa, maybe about 20 clicks south of Baghdad. And it was good. I mean, it was almost like a textbook ambush in the context of like I had them where I wanted them.
Yeah.
An Army unit was in
You're like-
contact as we rolled up. Yeah, I mean, it was like
It's like
the Marines did exactly like we trained. It was like they dismounted, everybody was ready to roll as the last Army vehicle. Like they're supporting us too with preserved weapons. The last vehicle goes by, and then the Marines are online shooting like as the last vehicle. I mean, like so there was never talking guns, everything. I'm just like, yes, this is awesome. Murphy's Law does throw into this, so that's a whole nother program. But that next week, on just a general mission, he ended up losing his life in another ambush. The reason why I bring that up is he had saved all of us by taking out a mortar crew in that ambush. Like he legitimately saved my squad.
So you guys were ambushing somebody, or they ambushed you?
So in the initial one, a week prior to his death, was my squad going into an ambush. So we actually rolled into a kill zone that the Army was in the middle of an ambush.
Yeah. Gotcha.
We had dismounted with them actually in between us and the enemy. So the enemy they thought they were ambushing the Army that's going to roll through the kill zone.
Right.
We had dismounted and we're ready to fight. And we're going to come towards you and close.
So he's, there's somebody out there dropping rounds in a tube, launching them out at, that's already, that tube is set up on this kill zone, like you said, and just going to drop rounds right onto this little area that they know everybody's going to be at. And he helped you guys out. He saved you guys.
And to clarify, the combined arms portion of it was there was RPK machine guns,
all enemy stuff.
The mortars actually are just a longer range weapons platform that they utilized. But he took that out specifically where now I can deal with whatever's in front of me. I don't have to worry about that variable of IDF coming down on me in direct fire. The week that he did get killed, though, we were part of the quick reaction force that went up there. That was the night that actually BJ had got wounded, and everybody in that vehicle got Purple Hearts from the shrapnel. It was actually Thanksgiving night.
Think about that. It's like everybody's like, oh, my dad or mom died on Thanksgiving, and now that holiday is ruined. Or all of my friends died, or all of my, it's like, it all sucks. However, it's like for us, it's like Christmas. It's new, it's everything. There's a potential for any holiday, anything with multiple people, everyone we know.
Which is poignant. I do want to have a show about him specifically because in my mind, he is a hero.
BJ or Catafio?
Catafio.
Both. Yeah, I mean,
BJ,
both.
Definitely. But Catafio in particular, because of the context of Memorial Day. And I think we need to have a show about individuals later on.
Oh, yeah.
Overall, his sacrifice is what I'm saying is definitely saved my life directly. So proximity and mourning.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen what he's done. Going back farther, he was actually a Marine that had missed some drills or something like that, where he had gotten reduction in rank.
Yeah.
And it was even questionable if he was going to go with.
Yeah.
He found out that, hey, Gulf Company is actually on the tee, but they will be deploying, because I know that there was like this
emotional
boomerang,
roller coaster. Yeah.
So he came back.
Mind you, he wants to go,
Right.
and he's sick of the waiting game.
Right.
Yeah.
Owned up to all that responsibility. Said, hey, I don't care. I want to go forward with these guys and be with this. This is a
Think of that
camaraderie
caliber
spirit
of person.
I know.
Yeah.
He also left a child that he never met.
Wife was pregnant at the time, and
significant other, whatever the dynamic was there. I don't know in particulars, and we can find that out.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
But essentially, imagine that again, that effect of that life ripple. So here's this individual. I'd like to identify him for my Memorial Day guy. I owe him, or a debt of gratitude, I guess. Again, he specifically saved not only myself, but everybody in my squad, and everybody knows the dynamic there. Like, these are your guys. So I just like, yeah.
And the funny thing is, to kind of tie into a couple points, Memorial Day is for those that have fallen, fighting for this country, so quickly tied into the Gold Star families, right? And however, we're going to say it's not about us. Yeah, I miss my buddies and stuff like that. Don't pay attention to me on Memorial Day, but I'll definitely pay attention to the Gold Star families. I'm doing a hunt. What was it? It was a deer hunt, it was a deer hunt through a nonprofit. Hero Hunts. I'm gonna screw it up, but anyways, out of Waupun, Wisconsin.
Does that take them outdoors?
Nope. Hero Hunts. Hero Hunts for Heroes. Hero Hunts. I'm screwing it up. Sorry, guys. So great group of folks. There's a little bivouac area, tent. It was just the therapy, right? Any of these nonprofits, the therapy is to get us away from all of this crap, and then to sit around a campfire in a fishing boat or whatever it is, right?
With 2 cases of beer.
Ooh, some beer. Yeah,
someone's
exactly.
Basement for the first time
For like 12 hours. Yeah, him and I. But so we're sitting there and we're doing this hunt, and then you come back in after darkfall, after nightfall starts, and have a little campfire, and they have like this little catered food come in and stuff like that, and whether it's sandwiches or whatever, and like, hey, we're going to run to the local restaurant who supports our nonprofit and provides you guys meals, and you're talking, there's hunters and then guides as well, so and less than a dozen, but anywhere from 6 to 12 people or whatever it is, and then plus the organizers, and the food comes in. It's from Contafio's family restaurant, and it's like they lost their son, and they're like, hey, how do we give back? Like, you give, you don't give anymore. You take, I'm like, you gave enough, right? But no, they're out there as a family restaurant, which it's not like you're rolling in dough, it's a restaurant, it's family owned, it's in a small town area, and they're like, nope, they donate the meals to this nonprofit for us to have a nice meal. So just imagine sitting there and you're on a hunt where somebody's recognizing you, which we struggle with anyways, right? And so, but I'm like, hey, I enjoy sitting around this campfire with some like-minded folks, and I can get away from my life issues and just stare at the fire, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're taking a bite of this food that's from a Gold Star parent, that put it together and all that stuff. And you're like, those bites taste different, it's
Absolutely does. Absolutely does.
So in closing, I'd like to identify the last breath theory. Like, I think that I need to spread their stories of those in proximity that I know that have lost their lives, just so their legacy is, and their sacrifice is always around. That also goes into the Gold Star parents, and again, those ripple effects. My question for both of you gentlemen, going forward, how would you like civilians to celebrate Memorial Day, when we know closer to our own sphere of influence, there's a lot of sacrifice there, and the public doesn't see that? How would you like to see others celebrate that? And it's just a general recommendation.
I can say I came from a very non-military family. We're patriotic, but we're just not very. I have an uncle that was in the military. My grandpa was, but saying thank you is very important, and for us to say, well, this isn't a time to say thank you. This is what you say. Shut the fuck up, right? Accept a thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Catholic. Someone says Happy Hanukkah, I say, hey, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
So accept any kind of thank you, because civilians, they're looking for a way to say thank you, and I think as military people, we have to get much better at accepting thank yous. I'm not good at that either.
Yeah.
To
a point where it's like a bad thing, just thank you for your service, and they joke about it like it's a bad thing. It's right. Like, well, give them a solution then. Like, what? Okay. Anyway, sorry.
You're absolutely. Well, I'll talk about this for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Accept a compliment, accept a thank you. Be good at that. If you get a day off work for it, spend 3 minutes of that entire day thinking about, I hate the word first world problems, because we've earned these problems. We've worked. If you're a very healthy person and you work out every single day and you have a twinge in your hip, from working out. That's a first world. That's a hard work problem. Saying, man, I wish you didn't have that. Because someone can say, well, my fat ass friend over there is both his hips fell off. Well, tell him to do a sit up and stop. Eat that apple. So I'm very proud of the first world problems that our predecessors developed for us.
Mhm.
Right. So don't be sad. If you see a military guy that's bummed out, give him a hug, shake his
Mhm.
hand, say thank you, and expect him to come out of his closet and have a beer with you, have a lemonade, sit outside, enjoy this beautiful weather that we're having. And but if you're going to talk to your kids about it, if you're going to talk to your spouse about it, if you're going to think about it, give it 2 or 3 minutes and just say, hey, what is this day really about? It's about a bunch of dudes that died fighting for this beautiful country, and they deserve that. But they also don't need or want. And I feel comfortable speaking for warriors from biblical times all the way today. We've seen enough pictures to know that, every war someone turns a bullet into a dick. It's funny. Every war someone's flipping off the camera or the picture. It's funny. We haven't changed that much,
Mhm.
and because of that, I understand that every warrior, we don't need anyone crying for us.
Yeah.
It's nice to have someone remember you,
Mhm.
but drink a beer, have fun, hug your family, even in the times right now that it's there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of we're still in
Segregation.
we're still in a very comfortable,
Mhm.
progressive, good place to be.
Mhm.
We're working toward good things.
Mhm.
Understand that, and understand who put us in that position.
Yeah.
Who put us in that position. So small amount of time remembering and saying thank you. The vast majority of the time should be celebrating and being proud and thankful for what we have.
Yeah. Question? Yeah. No, I'm like, what was the question?
Top that,
Yeah.
asshole.
Yeah. No. Honestly, my closing thoughts, I think about veterans and I think about society, right? Society is, and I work, we have about 8 jobs, right? But regardless, hot topic is diversity, equity, inclusion, right? And our version is probably a lot different than everybody else's version, and I think my version is right. It's like, all are welcome, carry your weight, and by any means that you're able to and stuff like that. So it's a very fair, very equal person. And I think about these people that fought and died alongside, the city person, the country person, the atheist, the everything. None of that mattered. It was, this is right, this is wrong, and I'm going to go fight wrong next to whoever is got the cojones or non cojones, but stepping up to fight alongside me. And you are now my brother or sister, and they're no longer here. So, the passing of the torch and the history taught to veterans, like you said, as veterans, very easy to be aggressive with it, but to be humble and be like, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. Today's the day for those that didn't come home, and Veterans Day is the day for us. And these are the people I'm remembering, and I hope to tell you their story. And do you know anybody that passed away? So a little education there. But veterans, be the solution to your problem. I could mourn my guys for the rest of my life, and a part of me does. When it's bar close time, 2 a.m., and you're calling me up, talking about your PTSD triggers, and I'm like, what? I can't hear you. The club music is too much, and there's people bumping into you, and you're on your 14th beer and stuff. It's like, you're your own problem. Your problems aren't your problem. It's like the passing of so and so isn't your problem. It's your enabling of your own problem. So it's like, one, work towards success. Find your next mission. They want you to find your next mission. They want you to be successful. They want you to be a positive, happy person. They want you to have a good day, and they're looking down upon you, hoping that you have a good day. So have a good day, and into society, my biggest thing that I want to change is that we're not, I'm thinking it's so serious, it is serious, but I'm thinking of Rambo 2, I think. He's like, well, I'm expendable. What's expendable, Rambo? Expendable's like when you get invited to a party and you don't show up and like nobody misses you. You're not expendable, Rambo. They're on the little dinghy going out. So the politicians that like to throw us out somewhere and don't feel the weight of war or combat or conflict, and they use this as a Monday morning decision, like, we'll try this, put our toe in the water here, do that, or whatever. I firmly believe in special operations and boots on the ground, non-boots on the ground, ending of conflict with physical violence and all that stuff. I believe in that. I don't want it. I don't want it for anybody, but it's a tool in the toolbox, right? It is something that you have to have. And when you don't have that and you just have politics and words and let's hug it out, and the other person's like, oh, you want to hug it out? And I have this barbed wire wrapped bat that I'm going to smack you in the face with. You got to have somebody who also has a barbed wire bat, willing to do the same, and you got to have weight behind your words. We've grown into a society because there's 1%, less than 1% of us fighting these wars. There's less people that's representing us out there. Yes, there's all the NGOs, non-government organizations, but regardless, the people out there fighting, doing the work of the many, and those that are making the decision to put us abroad, and then, regardless of, Republican or Democrat, whoever is putting us out there, it doesn't matter, to understand the weight of life, and understand that we will do it. We will complete the mission. We're going to do it. And if it's a purposeful mission, obviously we're all behind it regardless, but it's like, don't use us as a chip, as a toy, as a thing. We'll do anything for this country, and to be taken advantage is usually seen immediately. So, yeah.
Memorial Day, I think that, and not saying that other veterans have to or would, I like to adopt the mantra of that castle that you built. Open up that castle, open up the drawbridge to those who matter on your matter card. Revisit that, your life goals. Always adopt the mantra of fortune favors the bold.
Like that.
And like BJ talks about, left foot is the good foot. As Marines, step off with
Make
that left
progress.
foot.
Yeah.
Like those sacrifices are real.
Mm-hmm.
Those are real sacrifices. They're real people. We know them. We touch them. We smelt them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's honor them in the correct way by going forward and empowering each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And with Broken Unreadable as the name of the gig here, seek higher ground. That's your next step. I don't have comm. I got to seek higher ground. We all seen, Lone Survivor. We've all been doing this, that, or the other, where we're like, oh, we got bad comm. Oh, I got bad cell service. Like, oh, I got to find an area. Seek higher ground. That's for your life. That's, metaphorically speaking, is like, seek something better for yourself. They want you to have the world. Go have a great life.
I guarantee that that a sacrifice for our country would definitely come back and say, hey, you deserve to be happy.
Agreed.
Amen.
Think about that phrase. You deserve to be happy.
On that, I think we need to go forth and dominate.
Dominate.
Love you guys.
Out.
Also, follow us on social media, please. If you have any recommendations across the board or questions, maybe even recommendations on future shows, please feel free to reach out to us.
If you're an impressive person, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
And impressive isn't necessarily just military. We have some folks coming in that are very impressive that aren't
Juggling,
just like us.
juggling, freestyle rap.
Yeah.
dance,
Flaming chainsaws.
Yes, you can do any of that kind of stuff.
For sure.
Awesome.
Cool. That's a wrap.